Here. That was Dax, God's Eyes. Man, I really didn't know how to feel about this song when I first heard it. Probably, how long has it been out now? Was it 2 years? That's what I thought. But, yeah, I remember when it first came out, it was just like, man, it's got a great beat to it and stuff, but I just didn't really know much about the book of Revelation at that time, you know what I'm saying? But, yeah, what's up, everybody? But anyways, that was, Dax, God's Eyes, But, let's go ahead and jump into it, right? So, I want to talk about a couple things right quick. I guess we'll start in Daniel. Actually, I totally forgot. I need to mark this one. That's what I need to do. Okay, already. Alright, so this is how we're going to start this. Excuse me. And it says, Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of this week, right, he shall cause the sacrifice, and, all the church obligations, to stop, right? So basically what we know is that this has to mean that there's a rebuilding of the third temple. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so my point is right here, right? We have that he, shall confirm his covenant with many for 1. And what we understand about this is that the Antichrist, or the system of the Antichrist, right, is going to, protect Israel for, 3.5 years, right? And then it's going to turn on him, or, turn on Israel in the last 3.5 years, is what I understand, right? And, it's crazy. I've been studying this Antichrist thing for over a year now. Not just specifically the Antichrist, it's the book of Revelation, right? And so around October 10th, I just thought it was crazy, right? With just all this history in the mix, right? Because, see, I don't know if a lot of people know that in the 5,000 year history of Jerusalem, right, there has been 3 major, okay. And see, I didn't even know this, right, until today. When I wrote all this down. Let's see here. This is nuts, right? All right, here. Okay, so let's see. Is that on the? Okay, right here. So Jerusalem, and to me, this became most important, right? Because this is the same city, right, that God is, after he destroys and everything's, rebuilt. This is where everybody, in the New Jerusalem, right? So I don't even know, that ain't what necessarily got me on this mix. It was just, been studying, all this end times, eschatology, or whatever you want to call it, man, and it's just that. So, okay. In the last 5,000 years in Jerusalem's history, right, there's been so these are the key captures. Okay, and honestly, I wanted to almost exclude the first one, but to me it's very important. So you got to start with King David, right, in 1000 BCE. And see, we know that God made a promise to David, right? That the Messiah would come through his bloodline. And this could be issuing the fact is, and I feel like time right now is when Daniel was, the 23, 100-day prophecy, which some people interpret 2,300 years, right? And if you really think about it, it's kind of crazy, man. All right. So over this 5,000 year period, and Jerusalem's important, man. You know what I mean? Because it's crazy, like even the Crusades and all these different. Honestly, man, it has to be one of the most sought to conquer cities in the ever existed, right? I mean, it's crazy, right? But anyways, it has been, captured, besieged, or surrendered over 30 times throughout its 5,000 year history. So, like I said, the key captures include, King David in 1000 BC. Once again, I think this, was reason why, God made that promise, to David. Don't get me wrong, we all know how everybody's always hating on King David for what he did, Goodness, once again, like everybody hates on Adam for, making the one mistake that he did, you know what I mean? And Eve for the one mistake that she did. Nobody ever blaming the serpent, the tempter, everybody laughs at you when you're like, hey, the devil made me do it. I mean, did he not? Really push him into the water? But anyways, my point is, Jerusalem has been captured over 30 times throughout history, right? In 5,000 year period. We got King David in 1000 BC. Then we got the Babylonians, 586 BC, right? So this has been around the time Daniel and all this, right? Then you got the Romans, then you got the Muslims, the Crusaders, the Ottomans, in which they are also Muslims, you know what I mean? Then you got, the British, Great Britain conquered it in 1917 during World War One. What did I come on here say another night? What was I telling you about the first trumpet, dude? I'm telling you, dude. A lot of this has to do with Jerusalem, man. I'm starting to figure it out. That's what he was talking about, man. That's where the focus was going to be on. This is how we would know these signs, dude. So it's crazy, right? I've tracked this all the way throughout history in 5,000 year period, just in Jerusalem at this point, right? And I'm talking about, dude, all right, before I get, off track. Okay, so, and then, in 1967, Israel, regains control, right? So, and dude, like I said, I got the whole 30 times, written down. And, we'll go over that in time, but it's very important because I think a lot of Daniel's, prophecies, especially with the, 2,300 day prophecy or whatever, I think that has a lot to do with this, right? But anyways, my point is, right, why I think that Daniel chapter 9, 27 has taken place on October 10th, 2025, right? And I don't know how many times this happened over history, but I'm just trying to say this is unique that this agreement has come upon, right? At this time. Okay? So, now tell me this ain't crazy, right? I looked up earlier. Who has held control over Jerusalem the longest, right? In history, right? No kidding. It just blew my mind, right? And I don't know, man. Has it been in our face this whole time, right? Has it? Have we been set upon a one world religion this whole time and didn't know about it? I'm just trying to say, what have we been, has been hidden from us right in front of our faces, man? You know what I mean? Man, the blind leading the blind, truly. Okay, so, right. This blew my mind. So the Muslims have had control over Jerusalem for the longest over all periods throughout history, right? Totaling over 1,200 years across various dynasties. And I can't even go to name these guys. And see, another thing I thought was crazy right here, right? The woman in scarlet, right? And we know that these 7 hills, 7 mountains, right? Now listen, a lot of people talk about this and that, but look, throughout all these various dynasties, it names off 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 names. Like I said, I ain't even go through here and try to name these off, but anyways, okay, so Jerusalem. Let's go back there again. So Muslim rule in Jerusalem, okay? Approximately 1,200 to 1,283 years. I'm talking about throughout history, have ruled the holy city longer than anybody. But it can't be that simple, man. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, dude. But there's a big part to it. Definitely, we got to take note of that. So, approximately they've ruled almost 100 more years longer than the Jewish people have, right? So the Jewish people have ruled over Jerusalem roughly 1,000 to 1,200 years throughout history, okay? And this is including the first and second temple periods. And I can't even remember, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Hasmonean? It's Hasmonean. I didn't even look up how to pronounce that. But, this includes modern Israel, which is 1967. But, dude, that is crazy, right? I mean, dude, there's something to that. And that 2,300 day prophecies, I'm telling you, dude, it almost points to Islam's control of the holy city, man. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you, bro, it's crazy. But anyways, so the Christians, right, have ruled in Jerusalem, that they had control approximately 400 to 410 years. And really, if you count, Great Britain, because which they was, had the Church of England, I'm pretty sure at that time, 100%, of course they did. When they, in 1917, during World War I, sacked Jerusalem, from the Muslims, right? From the Ottoman Empire after ruling 400 years, dude. Tell me World War I wasn't a distraction for the sack of Jerusalem, bro. I don't know, man. I could be crazy, But you can't tell me it ain't interesting, right? So it makes you wonder, right? Like there is so many people I've always heard about the Middle East, right? There will be peace in the Middle East. Correct? Peace in the Middle East. Or they'd say world peace, and some people said, there'd be peace with Israel and its surrounding enemies. But what if I tell you, let's see here, hang on. I got it written down somewhere right here. I'm so sorry, I've got these notes everywhere. The Gaza Peace Plan, October 10th, 2025. Peace in the Middle East. So, here we are, right? So, if I'm right about all that, right? Because we know when this happens, and I'm telling you, the Antichrist is supposed to make peace with it. And I'm just trying to say, how about if I'm right about Islam, dude? And let's go back to it, right? Why I could think this. And how, if I'm right about that means we got 3 to 3.5 years. Who knows how long it's even started and when the clock does start. I'm trying to say no one knows the day or the hour. I will agree. And I'll say that to anybody who asks me, nobody knows the day or the hour. Only The Father, knows, right? We know that's exactly what Jesus said. And we know 100% sure that no man knows the day or an hour. But we know at some point that we have proven, right? Revelation chapter 12, verse 14, Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, that 1,260 days the people will be tested. 1,260 days the people will be taken care of in a place by God. You know what I mean? So, and we know at the last trumpet, Paul says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses, I think it's 14 through 17, says that at the last trumpet, the dead will rise first, and the ones still alive at the time will meet them there. Jesus said, two will be in the field, one will be taken, one will be left. Two will be grinding in the mill, one will be taken, one will be left, right? Nobody knows the day or hour the Lord's coming, but he said that you should be watching up into the door, man. Till it's knocking on the door. Where's it? He says likewise. That's when he said, when you see, the trees blooming, you know what I mean? You see plants blooming, summer's near, right? Just like now. So what am I trying to tell you, right? That he said, and when you see these things, likewise, he said, you know that it is near, even at the doors, bro. What do you consider at the doors? You know what I mean? See, that's what keeps getting me with a lot of these people, right? I know I'm gonna get on here and a lot of people gonna be thinking like, hey dude, here's that guy on here talking about the rapture again, right? Or this. But I'm trying to tell you, this I'm pretty sure has never happened. Right? All the times the Muslims and the Jews made peace in the Middle East. Okay, so, right? See, that's exactly what I'm saying, man. Everybody's not hearing what I'm trying to say here. It's not the Jews they're after, bro. He's made a covenant with the Jews. That's what I'm trying to say, bro. Look, man, it says that Muhammad even made peace with Jewish tribes and formed a pact, defining them as a single community, with mutual protection and freedom of religion, bro. I mean, right here. And like I said, I know all these times it happened, but dude, and you think the Abraham Accords, if that happened in 2020, well, it's 2025 now, that'd be the end of half of it. See, it couldn't be. But what I'm trying to tell you, it's not even on here now. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the Gaza peace plan, that I'm pretty sure. Now, you know what I'm saying? Look, dude. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'd be 7 times that Muslims and Jews have made peace over years. Is that not the same thing as 7 kings? I'm just trying to say, even in the beginning, he's like, hey, y'all who say y'all are Jews and not Jews, remember? In the churches. He says that like 2-3 times throughout churches, remember? He says, I know at least twice in one church and another church. That's what I'm trying to say, dude. Have the films right, man. And I'm just trying to say, I think a lot of these scholars were so close to being dead on it, like Isaac Newton, and that other guy I was studying his book for a while. I'm just not trying to say they were so close, but I think they had such a hatred for just the Roman civilization, Roman Empire, just the Roman history. It was ever hard for them not to think it wasn't because of Nero and such. And I'm not arguing to say that Nero wasn't terrible. I wasn't trying to sit here and tell you that Napoleon didn't do crazy, terrible things, probably. You know what I mean? Who knows, right? I mean, he was known as the Antichrist. Okay. Let's see here. Where we at? So we talked about 9, chapter 27. I'm trying to say, dude. I mean, what are we going to do, man? What I'm trying to tell you is it's not against. See, everybody's like, oh, man, they're hating on the Jews. They're hating on the Muslims. But all I'm trying to tell you as a Christian, bro, we're the ones that's going to get it, man. That's what I'm trying to tell you, man. We got to quit being food. We're going to be the one prosecuted because the Jews are going to agree with the Muslims, and then whoever that world power is will like, hey, they don't really care anyway because probably most of them are atheists. I mean, I don't know, bro. Satanists, who knows, man? These crazy sickos out here, right? Okay, so, and like I said, one day we're going to have to get on here and go through the whole church age series. But I want to prove my point, right? That I believe there is something to that. And if I'm right, 3.5 years, it's going to be some crazy stuff, man. I don't know. And I could, I don't know, man. I mean, who knows? I'm just trying to say, why do I feel like God revealed this to me? And I mean, I feel like it's been on my heart the whole time. I mean, dude, I'm just trying to say, I hope the rapture happens tomorrow. I'm just trying to say, I think God can do whatever he wants to, whenever he wants to, you know what I mean? And I'm on his side, so, I hope it does happen tomorrow, you know what I mean? I'd be cool if the rapture happened right now. But I'm just trying to tell you that I believe, because of Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, Revelation chapter 12, verse 14, that there's going to be 1,260 days. The saints will be going through some terrible things from the Antichrist. And then there's going to be 1,260 days that the church is going to be given wings, it says. And I'm trying to tell you, this is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 14 through 17, man. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 50, I think it's 52 and 53. You know what I mean? This is, I don't know, man, definitely I believe what Jesus was talking about. I believe, let's see here. Revelation chapter 14, and I feel like, honestly, Revelation chapter 7 proves what I'm trying to say too, because look, and that's the crazy thing, right? That we know that the Antichrist will also go and change, some of the words of the Bible. You know what I mean? Is what we understand. That's what I'm trying to say. Look at the Jehovah's Witnesses, man. Look what they did in China. And I'm just trying to tell you that I believe in the English language. That's why a lot of people got tripping out about it, man. Because, see, a lot of people don't realize that Revelation chapter 7. Now, I can't remember exactly where, but they added the word the. And I know it might sound crazy, like, oh man, that don't mean nothing if they add the word the. But it does if it changes it from being like they went through these great, like these, this like, great trials, great tribulations, right? Instead of the great tribulation, you know what I mean? Because when you consider the great tribulation, you're like, talking about a certain event, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's why they try to, change it to being more of like a look at and heck, if you look at it that way, really, man, it's easy to prove either that it's a pre-trip rapture or it's like the Catholics think that they're in the last hour and Jesus is going to come back any minute, pretty much, is the way I understand it, right? Let's see here. Oh, yeah, Revelation chapter 7. Okay, right here. See, in the King James Version, it doesn't have the word the. But dude, you go to other Bible translations, and it's even got it capitalized like it's this period of time. But dude, that's adding words. It says not to add or take away, or terrible things are gonna happen. You know what I mean? And I'm just trying to say, it says something about the plagues of the book we're gonna come after, or something like that. And I'm just trying to say, I think that's a lot of reason why a lot of people in the King James Version, people got freaking out about a lot of stuff. Because not only did that kind of change the verse, but it's like, I don't know, man. Because right here, we have the sealing of the 144,000. I believe when the 144,000, right, are getting preached to by the two witnesses, right, at the Wailing Wall, okay, or in Jerusalem, okay, and then you got all this goes on with, we know what happens with the witnesses, and I believe, after they're killed by the beast, right, and after they're right, they go to heaven, the two witnesses. I believe the rapture happens somewhere around that. You know what I mean? Time. Because see, and that also goes to the time period of the 1260 days, because that's how long the two witnesses are going to preach. So if I'm right, also about this theory, that the two witnesses have been preaching for around 4 or 5 months now. You know what I mean? And who knows? That's what I'm saying. I don't know exactly when it started, but I'm just trying to tell you, dude, I feel like that would have been the 7th time that Islam and the Jewish people have made peace over the last 5,000 years, man. You know what I mean? Or however long, Islam's been around. You know what I mean? And I'm just trying to tell you, dude, all the way back to Muhammad in the 7th century, dude. I'm just trying to say, how about that is the scarlet beast? How about that is, you know what I mean? But I'm just trying to say, the one world religion would come in when everything got to Babylon, which was the United States. I'm telling you, dude, a lot of this got mixed up, man. That there were signs, but I'm telling you. But anyways, it talks about these people coming out of the tribulation, right? It says, I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest, and he said to me that these are which came out of the great. See, if you said the great tribulation, so you're thinking, hey, they come after the 7 years, man. But it wouldn't make no sense because they're just getting marked, and then you got the woman going away, on the run for like 1,200, excuse me, for 1,260 days, she grows wings and flies away, right? So, I believe that right here is the prophecy behind Revelation chapter 12, verse 14 goes to relate to Revelation chapter 7. And it's also verse 14. And I believe those who have washed their blood and robes are the people who, come out of, great tribulation. Not the great tribulation, just great tribulation. They come out of, hard times, you know what I mean? And I believe because the Antichrist tests them and they go through these trials for 1,260 days. Then they get raptured 1,260 days. And then that's when all the wrath starts happening. And that's when the Antichrist breaks his peace with, you know, uh, Israel. And I'm talking about, man, it's just God pours the judgments out on them. So, let's see, is that it on the. Like I said, Revelation chapter 12. I mean, excuse me, not 12, but 14:14 speaks of. Actually, before I read that one, let me read. And Jesus said in John, Jesus said in John chapter 14, I think it's verse 3, that he was going away for a while to prepare a place for us, but he would come back to get us. You know what I mean? Jesus said, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. In some translations, many rooms, right? If it were not so, I wouldn't have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you into myself. We will meet the Lord in the air, is what it says. And receive you into myself, and that where I am, there you may also be. And I feel like, we'll be up there with him in the sky. You know what I mean? Us and him. Okay, so, and I believe not only will the church of Philadelphia be raptured, but also I believe that, some from the church of Sardis is going to be raptured. Because it even says, it says, and unto the angel of the church of Sardis write these things, says he that has the seven spirits of God and the seven stars. I know thy works, and thou hast a name, thou livest and art dead. So he's saying that I believe this one too. And honestly, I think that it might be saying right there, because he says what? Thou hast a name, that thou livest and art dead. You know what I mean? So it's almost like half and half, almost like their church is the, virgins, five, had enough oil and five didn't, right? Because they'd been the church that come from this last past generation. You know what I'm saying? That makes a lot of sense. It says, be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die. For I have not found thy works perfect before God. Remember therefore how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I shall come upon thee. Thou hast a few names in Sardis which have not defiled their garments, right? And they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. He that overcometh, the same shall be clothed in white raiment, and I will not blot out his name in the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. Okay, so then, remember, he says to the church of Philadelphia, write these things, to the, and to the angel of the church of Philadelphia, write these things. He says that said he that is holy, he that is true, he that has the key of David, he that opens and no man shuts, and shuts and no man opens. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, right? But do lie. Man. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I love thee. And what I'm saying right now, it's crazy, bro. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation that will come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I'll come quickly, and hold thy fast which thou hast. Let no man take thy crown. He that overcometh, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out, and I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is the new Jerusalem. See, that hit me too, right? Which comes down out of heaven from my God, and I will write upon him my new name. And then, of course, we got the lukewarm church after that gets left behind. You know what I mean? We know that church. You know what I mean? I ain't even got to go in there, man. You know what I mean? We know the lukewarmers. You know what I mean? I don't care what they want to say. They can keep pointing their finger at us being lukewarm, but that ain't the truth. You know what I mean? I say the word of God every day and preach, just tell people how much God loves them, and try to, break down what Jesus taught, man. You know what I mean? And just try to teach people and, different levels. And I'm just trying to say, I feel like, God's happy, you know what I mean, with me, that's for sure. So, I think that's it for tonight that I really want to do on here, because I don't want to get too much further in deep, Let's see. So if I'm right, I just think that's crazy, though. I mean, it's something that should be acknowledged. But God bless everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I'll see y'all guys next time. I'm out of here.